Have you ever put your heart and soul into something only to watch that the outcome is far from what you imagined? Maybe you pictured success, recognition, or validation, only to be met with disappointment, embarrassment, or even regret. What if I told you that learning to let go of the outcome could be the key to finding freedom and peace? Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Empowered, the podcast where we explore the deep, transformative journeys of self-discovery, healing, and empowerment. I'm your host, Alkistis, and today we're diving into one of the most liberating lessons I've learned: how to detach yourself from the outcome. As human beings, we are wired for control. We cling to certainty because uncertainty feels like danger. Society teaches us that success is about hitting a target, whether it's a number on a scale, a milestone in your career, or the perfect relationship. We start to believe that if we don't achieve these things, we've somehow failed. And so we cling. We obsess. We pour all our energy into the outcome and forget to enjoy the process. But here's the truth. Attachment to the outcome is a recipe to anxiety, frustration, and disappointment. The more we fixate on a specific result, the more we blind ourselves to other opportunities and lessons along the way. Let's take a deeper look to why do we become so attached to outcomes. It's not just about what we want in the present. It's about how our minds have been shaped since childhood. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a renowned cell biologist, explains that from birth until about age 7, our brains are predominantly in a theta state, a state similar to hypnosis. During this time, we are like sponges, absorbing everything around us without filtering or questioning. We take in beliefs, patterns, and expectations from our parents, caregivers, and the environment we grow in. If you grew in a home where love was conditional, maybe tied to how well you performed in school, how you behaved, or whether you met certain expectations, you likely develop a subconscious belief that your worth is directly tied to the outcome. For example, if you aced the test, you were praised. If you didn't, you might have felt ignored or criticized. If you behaved perfectly, you were loved. If you messed up, love felt withheld. These early experiences create hardwired synapses in the brain that shape how we see the world. They condition us to seek validation and approval through external achievements. This wiring is so deeply ingrained that even as adults, we continue to tie our value to the result. Think about it. How often do you say to yourself, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when my relationship looks better, when I achieve that goal? It's this attachment to outcomes that keeps us stuck in a cycle of striving, stress, and self-doubt. Because when the result doesn't align with our expectations, it doesn't just feel like we failed. It feels like we are failures. But here's the thing. These beliefs aren't who we truly are. They are just programs running in the background of our minds. And the good news is that they can be rewired. Detaching from outcomes starts with understanding that our worth is intrinsic. We're not defined by our attachments or failures, but breaking free from this conditioning takes awareness, intentionality, and practice. So if you felt the weight of tying your happiness or self-worth to a specific outcome, then you've come to the right space. This episode is for you. Attachment to outcomes can feel like motivation at first. It pushes us to set goals and work hard toward them. But when the attachment becomes excessive, it comes at a steep cost to our emotional, mental, and even physical well-being. Let's break down the most significant cost of being overly attached to an outcome. Attachment to outcomes often leads to chronic stress. When we place our energy and hope into achieving a specific result, every minor setback feels like a crisis. This constant cycle of overthinking, second guessing, and worrying about whether things will turn out as planned can leave us emotionally drained. For example, you spend weeks preparing for a project, pouring all your energy into it. When the results don't meet your expectations, you feel crushed, not just disappointed, but as if the entire effort was wasted. Over time, this emotional strain can turn into burnout, where even the smallest tasks feel overwhelming. When we fixate on the end goal, we lose sight of the process. Life is lived in the present moment, but attachment pulls us into an imagined future where happiness is only possible if the outcome meets our expectation. For example, you're training for a marathon and spend months obsessing over finishing within a certain time. Instead of enjoying the discipline, growth, and energy that training brings you, you spend most of your time worrying about whether you'll hit your target. If you don't, the entire journey feels pointless, even though it wasn't. We forget that joy often comes from the small, imperfect steps along the way, not just a big finish. When your self-worth is tied to a particular outcome, the stakes feel incredibly high. This creates a constant undercurrent of anxiety. Instead of taking risk or enjoying the process, you're paralyzed by the fear of what will happen if you fall short. You might avoid sharing your goals with others because you're afraid of being judged if you fail. Or you might become obsessed with getting everything just right, which leads to procrastination, indecision, or self-criticism. Attachment narrows your focus, causing you to put all your energy into one specific vision of success. But life is full of unexpected possibilities. And when we're fixated on one outcome, we often miss the opportunities that could lead us to somewhere even better. Imagine you're so focused on getting promotion at your current job that you don't notice an exciting opportunity elsewhere that aligns better with your passion and skills. One of the most damaging costs of attachment is tying your sense of self-worth to the outcome. When things go well, you feel confident and validated. But when they don't, you spiral into self-doubt and shame. After failing to meet a personal goal, instead of reflecting on what you've learned, you internalize it all. I'm not good enough. This leads to a cycle of low self-esteem and overcompensating in future efforts. Attachment to outcomes can also affect how you interact with others. When you're overly focused on achieving a certain result, you might unintentionally place pressure on those around you, whether it's expecting a partner to act in a certain way, a friend to support your vision, or colleagues to perform perfectly. In parenting, being too attached to your child's result in school can lead to unrealistic expectations, putting unnecessary pressure on them and straining your bond. Attachment often leads to resistance when things don't go as you planned. Instead of seeing challenges or failures as opportunity for growth, we become stuck in frustration, blaming external factors or ourselves. After a failed business pitch, you might focus solely on their rejection rather than what it taught you about improving your strategy or approach. Attachment to outcome can feel like control, but in reality, it creates suffering. It traps us in a cycle of stress, fear, and dissatisfaction, robbing us of the joy, freedom, and growth that comes from being present and open to life's possibilities. The good news is you have the power to rewrite the story. By practicing detachment, you can learn to embrace the process, trust the timing, and find peace no matter what the outcome is. I'll be honest, when I think about the costs of attachment, I don't just see a list of consequences, I see myself. When I think about the cost of attachment, I don't just see one moment. I see a pattern that's shown up again and again in my life. I remember how in my early 20s, I poured my heart into my first business. I had this vision of what it would become: successful, celebrated, life-changing. I worked endlessly, often neglecting myself because I believed that when it succeeded, I'd finally feel like I was enough. But when the business didn't bring the success I had envisioned, I was devastated. I didn't just feel like I'd failed as an entrepreneur. I felt like I'd failed as a person. It wasn't just in my career. In my relationships too, I would cling to the idea of how things should be. I stayed in situations long past their expired date because I couldn't let go of the dream I had for them. I tell myself, if I just try harder, if I don't say too much, everything will fall into place. But it didn't, and each time it didn't, I found myself back in that cycle of disappointment, frustration, and self-blame. One of the clearest examples of this was when I became a mother. Before my first child was born, I had this idea of what kind of a mom I'd be: perfect. I'd have it all together, balancing everything seamlessly, while always staying patient and calm. But let me tell you, reality was so different. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and constantly questioning myself. Every time I fell short of my impossible expectations, I'd feel like I was failing my kids and failing myself. This is what attachment does. It ties our self-worth to an idea, an outcome, or a vision that might not even be realistic. When we don't meet those expectations, we don't feel just disappointed. We feel like we've lost a piece of ourselves. But here's what I've learned. Life rarely goes according to plan. Businesses fail, relationships end, kids throw tantrums, moms lose their patience. But that doesn't mean we failed. It just means we're human. It's taken me years to understand this, and I'm still learning. Every time I let go of how things should be, I create space to appreciate them as they are. Every time I release my grade on the outcome, I find the freedom to fully enjoy the process. So if you're clinging into a vision on how your life is supposed to look, I want you to ask yourself, is this attachment serving me, or is it holding me back? Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to let go and trust that life will unfold exactly as it's meant to. When I first heard of the phrase surrender to the flow, it sounded passive to me, like giving up. And as someone who's always been driven, who has always fought for what I wanted, the idea of letting go felt almost weak. But over the years, life has taught me that surrender isn't about quitting. It's about releasing control of what you can't predict and making room for things to unfold in ways you can't yet imagine. Surrender is an act of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, and trust that what is meant for you will find its way. It's not about walking away from your dreams. It's about losing the grip of fear, perfectionism, and attachment that keeps you stuck. It's about learning to dance with life instead of trying to force it to a rigid choreography. When I think of surrender, I think of something Oprah once said. When you trust that there is a plan for your life that is bigger than what you can imagine, you stop holding so tightly to what you think should happen and let life unfold as it's meant to. This perspective shifted everything for me. I realized that surrender isn't about letting go of my dreams. It's about letting go of the need to control every detail. It's trusting that even if things don't happen exactly how I envisioned, they're unfolding for my highest good. When I launched my second business, Alchemia, I approached it with a different mindset. I didn't obsess over becoming vividly successful overnight or proving something to anyone. Instead, I focused on creating something meaningful, something that aligned with my values. That shift from controlling the outcome to being present in the process allowed me to build with less anxiety and more joy. Dr. Gabor Mate teaches us that much of our need of control comes from early wounds. He explains, our need to control comes from a fear of being hurt again in the ways we were hurt as children. We believe if we control the world around us, we can avoid that pain. It resonates deeply with me. As a child growing up in a home where love often felt conditional, I learned to overachieve, to control outcomes, to feel safe and valued. That wiring followed me into adulthood, convincing me that if I could just get everything right, I'd finally feel enough. But here's what surrender taught me. Control is an illusion. No matter how tightly I held on it, I couldn't predict the twists and turns in life. And when I began to let go, when I stopped trying to micromanage the universe, I found something unexpected: freedom. One of the biggest breakthroughs I've had around surrender came from Dr. Joe Dispenza. He says the unknown holds the greatest opportunities for growth, but you can't create a new future while clinging to the old. This insight helped me reframe failure not as an ending, but as a redirection. When my pitch on Dragon's Den didn't go as planned, I could have let that failure define me. But instead, I asked myself, what is this teaching me? How can I grow from this? That shift from fear to curiosity changed everything. You don't have to know where the road ends to take the first step. When you surrender, you give yourself permission to take that first step, trusting that the path will reveal itself along the way. Some of the most beautiful moments in my life, meeting my life partner, discovering my purpose as an entrepreneur, healing old wounds, came when I stopped trying to force the outcome and simply allowed things to unfold. Surrender has taught me that life doesn't always go as planned, but it always goes as it should. The greatest gift of surrender is peace. The peace that comes from knowing you've done your part and trusting the rest to unfold. Now I want to turn this to you. Where in your life are you holding on too tightly? Is it in your career, your relationship, your personal goals? Take a moment to reflect on what it might feel like to loosen your grip, to trust the timing of your life, even if you can't see the full picture yet. Because here's the truth: surrender doesn't take anything away from you. It gives you the freedom to live fully right here, right now. All my life, I felt tied to the result. Reflecting on it, this wasn't just something I came up with on my own. I grew up with an overly ambitious father who had a clear idea of what success should look like. For him, success wasn't in the small wins or personal satisfaction. It was in the big, bold prizes. He believed in the stock market kind of success, the Nobel Prize kind of validation. His view of success was extraordinary, and while it gave me a sense of ambition and drive, it also instilled in me this underlying belief that being enough meant achieving something extraordinary. Anything less wasn't worth celebrating. I carried that belief with me for years, chasing these perfect outcomes. It shaped how I approached school, work, and even relationships. Every time I didn't hit the mark, I felt like I'd failed. Not just in that moment, but as a person. I wasn't chasing happiness or fulfillment. I was chasing validation. But life has a funny way of humbling us, doesn't it? It gives us this moment that forces us to pause and reflect. For me, those moments came through failures I couldn't control, businesses that didn't take off the way I imagined, opportunities that slipped through my fingers, relationships that didn't work. Every time I felt like I was falling further away from the version of success I thought I was supposed to achieve. I remember a particular moment after my first business failed. I was sitting alone, feeling like I had let everyone down. My family, my mentors, myself. My father's word echoed in my head, this unrelating question: what's the next big thing you're going to do? But there was no big thing, not in that moment. And I realized that if I kept tying my worth to these perfect outcomes, I would never feel enough. I would spend my entire life chasing an idea of success that wasn't even my own. I want to share something with you that's been a huge part of my own growth journey. Tools that help me stay grounded, focused, and intentional in my daily life. One of those tools is the 5-minute journal from Intelligent Change. This journal has been a game changer for me, helping me practice gratitude, set my daily intentions, and reflect on positive things even on tough days. If you're someone who's looking to create a more mindfulness and self-awareness into your daily life, this is a powerful place to start. The 5-minute journal is all about creating space to reflect and perfect for practicing non-judgment and embracing discomfort in small steps daily. As a special thank you for being part of this community and tuning in to today's episode, I'm excited to offer you a 10% discount on any Intelligent Change products, including the 5-minute journal, using code ALCHEMIA10 at checkout. Whether you're looking for a daily journaling practice or a tool to help you reflect more mindfully, this discount is my way of saying thank you for prioritizing your self-growth and healing. You can find the link to Intelligent Change products in the show notes down below. Remember to use code ALCHEMIA10 for 10% off your order. Let's keep growing, keep healing, and keep moving forward together. When I became a mother, everything changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just about me anymore. I started to think about the beliefs I was passing on to my children. One day, my daughter came home upset because she didn't get the result she wanted in one project they had. She was devastated, and I saw myself in her so clearly. That same need for perfection, that same sense of tying her happiness to the result. I knelt down beside her and said, "Did you do your best?" And she nodded. Then I said something I wish someone had told me when I was at her age. Your effort is what matters most. The result doesn't change how proud I am for you. In that moment, I realized that motherhood was teaching me the lesson I needed most. That success isn't about the result. It's about the effort, the growth, and the courage it takes to show up, even when things don't go perfectly. As I reflect on my own childhood, I could see how much my drives were shaped by my father's high expectations. But what I've learned is that his version of success doesn't have to be mine. I started asking myself, what do I actually value? What does success look like for me? Can I feel proud of myself for trying, even if the results aren't perfect? These questions began to shift how I approached my work, my relationship, and even my self-worth. I let go of the need to achieve something monumental to feel validated. Instead, I started celebrating the small, meaningful moments where I gave my all, even if the outcome wasn't what I envisioned. Motherhood continues to be my greatest teacher. It's shown me that what I want most for my children isn't for them to win awards or to achieve the perfect outcome. I want them to grow knowing that their worth isn't tied to what they achieve. I want them to be proud of their effort, to learn from their failures, and to find joy in the process. Now, when my children come to me with their challenges, I ask them, "What did you learn? How did it feel to try something new? What are you proud of, even if it didn't go as planned?" These are questions I wish someone had asked me. They're the questions I now ask myself daily. One of my favorite insights comes from Mel Robbins, who says, "The goal isn't to achieve perfection. The goal is to keep going. Progress is success." This mindset has become a mantra for me. I've learned to celebrate progress, to find joy in the effort, and to let go of the idea that success needs to be big or glamorous to be meaningful. Now success looks different for me. It's not about the Nobel Prize, the Oscar, these moments. It's about showing up authentically for the people and things I care about. It's about being proud of myself for trying, even when the outcome isn't perfect. One of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou sums it perfectly. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do and liking how you do it. This is a lesson I want to pass to my children, and the lesson I'm still learning every day. As you think about your own life, I encourage you to ask, where have I been chasing the perfect outcome? What would it feel like to celebrate the effort instead of the result? How can I start redefining success in a way that aligns with who I truly am? Because here's the truth. Success isn't in the prize, it's in the journey. And when you let go of the need of perfection, you open yourself up to a life full of joy, growth, and meaning. As we wrap up this chapter, I want to leave you with the simple truth that you are not your outcomes. Your worth isn't defined by the results you achieve, the titles you hold, or the applause you receive. It's defined by the courage it takes to try, the lessons you learn along the way, and the authenticity you bring to every step of your journey. Letting go of the need for perfection isn't about giving up. It's about giving yourself permission to breathe, to be, and to trust that Who you are is already enough. So as you move forward, I encourage you to celebrate the effort, honor the process, and release the weight of expectation that no longer serve you. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I allowed myself to show up fully, without fear of failure or the need for everything to go perfectly? And remember, life isn't about reaching a perfect destination. It's about creating moments that matter, growing through what you go through, and finding joy in the beautiful messiness of it all. You are already much stronger, braver, and more capable than you think. Trust yourself. Trust your journey, and most of all, trust that everything you need is already within you. If this episode resonated with you, it would mean the world to me if you could share it with someone who might need this message. Don't forget to subscribe. It really helps more than you know. Not just to grow this podcast, but to keep creating these conversations for you. And please take a moment to introduce yourself. This is more than just a podcast. It's a space for community, connection, and growth. I love hearing from you, whether it's through your stories, insight, or just a simple hello. You can also find me on Instagram at alchemiaworld, so don't hesitate to reach out. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, thank you for being here. Keep showing up, keep leaning into your journey, and remember, you're not alone in this. You're part of something so much bigger. Till next time, love you.